Well, I think we ought to have the workshop to see what the issues are.
Yeah.
And then figure out, these are the issues, how do we deal with it through 12.36 or some other means? But I think WAVE ought to be there too. I mean, they've got a whole army of attorneys that'd love to send down from Seattle.
Maybe they can spend the night at the hotel.
I know some of them very well, in
I believe we're
fact.
called a gaggle.
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 No, but I hear what Rich is saying in terms of needing everybody there at the, make sure we get everybody there for that workshop. So, Councilor Parker.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd go along with Rich's comment, and I'd be inclined to support what we have in front of us. If I am on the prevailing side and it turns out that there are unintended negative consequences on the two vendors that were mentioned, I would give notice of reconsideration of this. But I'm willing to proceed now with a vote on these, an affirmative vote on these, and let us explore more. But if it turns out we screwed up, I'm prepared to turn around and go back.
Okay, and I would appreciate, because I had tried to articulate to the folks here, the applicants, is that I believe that the spirit of the council was to have a legitimately level playing field.
That's right.
And that nobody was trying to do boondoggle and get extra funds, that everybody was legitimately, and there was full knowledge that there is a maximum that we can't go over in the state of Oregon, so.
Well, one further
It's
thing,
federalized.
when we go to the next step where we have a workshop, which I hope we can start at staff level first and before we spend nights and nights on this, but I would like to see us authorize the staff to bring in some technical support for our reading and review, because it's a very complicated, it can be a very complicated thing. It can be a very straightforward business thing, but it can be a very complicated thing, particularly if we look at technology stuff. And so I'm hoping that we would be open to having staff have technical experts assist us, whether it be a telecom attorney or engineers or, I don't know what, but in other words, not just throw it on Joe and Greg's shoulders and try
to make them the product, the subject matter experts on a situation like this. I think that's a good recommendation. I think I'm seeing heads agreeing on that.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add something too, one of the things that, since Canby Telecom is a substantial business with considerable revenues, and these new ones are, they're just smaller, just getting started. What if you had a tiered program where it's 7% on the first X amount of revenues, and because Canby Telecom is way, way bigger in revenues, their fee goes down.
volume discount.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that we could explore through
Discuss that.
So that way you
The further-
incentivize them for their productivity, but you don't
And
punish
scope.
them because the other new ones, it's just like if you have a 10% flat tax and someone makes $10,000 a year and someone makes $100,000, it's hard to say the person that makes $100,000 not paying their fair share.
Well, I think the higher one always ought to pay, and then us retired people don't pay anything. I think that's...
We'll digress any further.
All right, maybe we should close this.
Wait to digress.
Okay, so we'll continue.
But that's exactly why we need a workshop and to
We can have that
noodle this thing
dialogue
through and not try to do it at 10:30 on a
Find it.
Wednesday night.
Yeah, with 3 more items still to go.
Yeah, poor Haley's about to fall asleep. You need a pillow back there?
4 more items to go. So, as is now, we're planning a workshop for
To work on the issue.
June.
Well,
June.
June?
Is that,
Well, it was currently set for June 5th to have the workshop and even try to get to the privilege checks ordinance, basically on the, the model one presented by Barry Elsner through the League of Oregon Cities. But if we are trying to get perhaps more creative to be more responsive and still within that level playing field idea, it might take a little bit more, say, talking to an expert like Nancy Warner.
Well,
And
What we might do is get whatever it is that they've developed that you wanted to talk about at the workshop and share it with everybody and get their list of comments and concerns so that we have a starting point of what's the scale of the issue, what's the problem.
A two-part workshop.
And then we can determine how much help we're going to need or if it's a solvable thing.
Okay. I can agree with that. Any other input? No? Okay. With that,
Mr.
motion?
Mayor, I would move approval of ordinance 1378, an ordinance granting to Clackamas County a political subdivision of the state of Oregon, a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunication services within the city of Canby, Oregon, and declaring an emergency.
I second.
motion was made by Counselor Ayers, seconded by Counselor Coleman to approve ordinance 1378, granting to Clackamas County a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunication services within the city of Canby, Oregon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, I would move ordinance number 1381, an ordinance granting to TW Telecom of Oregon LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunications services within the city of Canby, Oregon, and declaring an emergency.
I second that.
Motion was made by Counselor Ayers, seconded by Counselor Coleman to approve ordinance number 1381, an ordinance granting to TW Telecom of Oregon LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunications services within the city of Canby, Oregon, and declaring an emergency. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye. No.
Okay, so came out of ordinance.
Did that say declare an emergency?
Yes.
Yes, it did.
Why is there an emergency? Normally takes 2 readings.
No, it does take
Does take two
a second reading. It goes into effect after the second reading.
So Kim, do I need to reread those so that we're square on? I have 4-2
I have 4 too.
on both of those. Okay. Make sure we're good. Okay.
Who are you sending those? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Hensley and Dale.
Hensley and Dale were no votes. Dale? Dale and Counselor Hensley.
Thank you.
Counselor Tracy is also
Counselor
no.
Tracy. Counselor Tim.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. Appreciate it. So new business, a third quarter financial update.
Wake up, our finance director.
Wake up our finance director.
We're not in the new financial quarter yet.
New fiscal year.
Do you need some coffee? That's too bad. We'll have to talk to Pam about that.
Shoot, some of us are just hitting our stride right now. Come on.
Never go to bed before tomorrow.
I got a good 3-4 hours left in me.
Okay.
So this was my first attempt at the updated format to the report, which is at the consolidated level, the level at which appropriations are made and compliance is assessed, with the exception report. So I'm open to feedback to see what you guys thought. Ideally, I'd get this out a little bit sooner, but we were working on a format and with Casell of getting the reports out, so they'll only improve over time, hopefully. So I can go through some of the highlights, but a lot of the stuff on here you guys should all be aware of. The $1 million capital grant from Clackamas County and $20,000 in donations in the library funds for the library project. The 911 emergency fund we went over yesterday at the budget committee meeting because of some legislation. The funding for that has now changed as of January 1 of this year. So we have only received 19,000 in revenue. The forfeiture fund is receiving increased amounts in both state and federal forfeiture, which are always unexpected. And by state law, you're actually not supposed to budget. They don't like you to like predict that people will do bad things and have to give things away. The transit fund includes approximately $512,000 in business and energy tax credits. We will also be doing a supplemental budget to pay back the interfund loans from the transit fund to the sewer fund. And this, one of them in this year and one in next year, because they're technically, the way it was written, they're operating interfund loans, and by Oregon minimum standards, or ORS, you have to pay those back within 2 budget years. So to be in compliance with that law, we're going to amend the budget and do that. There's also some other minor things in here. You'll note in the URA fund, management is not expecting to issue a low cap loan, which was included in last year's budget, and so I outlined the projects that loan was going to fund, and then we no longer plan to execute because of that. And the other thing I would note is in the Urban Renewal Debt Service Fund, because of the federal sequestration, our interest rate subsidy has been reduced by 8.7%. We were expected to receive about $32,000, so it's 8.7% of that. Not a huge dollar amount. We have plenty to still make the payments on time, which we will do. However, it does give us an opportunity to potentially look at that financing, since they are taxable bonds and we do pay at a higher rate, and we don't know what the state of the federal budget will be in the future. So future sequestrations may be larger. We may want to consider refunding those at a non-taxable rate at a much lower rate to minimize our risk. So as we get through the budget and I have more time, I will do some sort of financial analysis on whether or not that would be a good thing to consider. And I think that's all I'm going to highlight right now.
Mr. Mayor. Yes, Councilor Parker.
My only regret is that you didn't have an opportunity to do this earlier in the evening when the council could show you an appropriate level of enthusiasm for financial reporting. But this does take me back to a moment that Councilor Tim and I had, I think, with the last finance director, which was that a conclusion that too much information is no information. That some of the information that we were getting was so detailed that it really didn't, as policymakers, give us the opportunity to look at the big picture, the highs and lows. And I think this is a big step in the right direction. I appreciate your willingness to continue to let this evolve, and to encourage you to, as you see things that you think, I'm really getting to like this about you, as you see things you think we need to know, of putting them in here. That's going to be helpful to us, instead of just the mind-blurring columns of figures that we've looked at in the past. So, again, I wish we had done this earlier and we would all be jumping up and down thanking you for this, but thank you very much anyway.
I appreciate the effort in this, and I am excited. I really am. So thank you.
We very much appreciate you waiting for so long to deliver your very short presentation.
Yes, appreciate that too, yes.
I have a softball. You have a softball question?
All right.
Can you remind us, Haley, I ask it every time, every year, it'll sink in someday, on page 2, general fund revenues, it, on the over-under column, it reads 2.3 million under. That's an annualized rate, that's as of now, and the gap will close as the year goes on, right?
Yes.
Okay, so blood pressure goes down, okay, gotcha. I thought that was the
The
case.
over-under is
Does that make sense?
over-under for the whole year.
Yes.
For the entire year,
Yes.
right, so we'll see it close. Gotcha.
Ruby. Thank you, Haley. Short, sweet, and to the point.
Saul and Jerry are having such a good.
They are having a blast.
Does he not know when to leave? When
And
You
so
know what
does
time
the
they come
rest
to work
of
in the
Candy.
morning? Jerry's going to be back in 6
They're going
hours.
straight to work.
So Jerry's just going to go to work, right?
Gonna throw it on a cot. Okay, so moving
I got one
forward.
more thing under new business. Per my phone call this morning, or this afternoon, I
Yes, sir.
talked to you about.
Sorry, I apologize.
An item I wanted to talk to you about. And I may let it go, but staff worked very hard on getting this information put together. We got the information on the Cub proposal this morning. That took a lot of work to get together, the information that Haley provided you at the executive session. And we had a meeting this morning, excuse me, with the library architects, Bill Harper, who is the construction manager, and who else was in that? I was in the meeting, and Brian was in the meeting. As you may or may not know, Monday night, the application to the Planning Commission was denied. And you'll see on the beginning of that, the first paragraph of that paper I gave you, they had 3 issues. They had lack of property ownership, owner consent for the application, the development standards were not satisfied with regard to building height, and the variance criteria necessary to reduce site landscaping were not met. Okay, so that was denied. What we did was we talked to a land use attorney, which Brian has used before, and the name is Carrie Richter. And we said, you know, is there something we can do to get this back before the Planning Commission? And there are ways to do it. One is to go through a whole new application. Another way, she advised, was to ask the council tonight to remand this back to the Planning Commission. I called Mayor Hodson and also Councilor Ayers and talked to them about this issue today. So we put a lot of work into this to try to get this back to you so we can get back to the Planning Commission. It's going to get back there anyway. This makes it a little more timely. We also made a phone call to the chairman of the Planning Commission and said, would you care if this came back? And maybe not that, but you were the one that
Brian
discussed
Brown
it.
did, and I discussed it with Brian Brown, and he articulated that as long as the process is being followed in terms of, his biggest thing was public notification, so that they know that that kind of second meeting was taking place, because there is provisions in the code, Chapter 16 or Title 16, .89, about level 3 or type 3 hearings that allow not only for the body to recess and come back if they want to look at other relevant evidence, or if the people who are proposing, the applicants are proposing to continue it so that they can have additional evidence, that's also not only allowable, but that's mandatory if they do it during the time of the evidentiary hearing. And so we asked them, in light of kind of the spirit of that law and the fact that there is brand new relevant evidence, and also in conjunction with 2 weeks ago what happened with the Fred Meyer gas deal where it was remanded because there was brand new evidence that should have really been entertained. This is the same sort of step. We're just, and Tyler Smith said, well, he couldn't speak for everybody on the body, but his concerns and what he thought that the way it was articulated was that as long as the public is given proper notice, and, you know, you guys are asking for it, they're going to hear it again. So.
Well, and to make sure that it goes through the correct process, and this is the correct process.
Right.
And so, also, it wouldn't be wise to take this back unless things had changed, and they have changed. That's what the meeting was about this morning for, I don't know, about a 2 or 3 hour meeting. The landscaping has been addressed. I think executive session tonight, we addressed one of the other issues. And the number 2, development standards are not satisfied with regard to building height. We think that was a misinterpretation by the Planning Commission. There will be, we will have help defining that to the Planning Commission next time.
Okay.
And let them know what we think, where, you know, the definition. The building height is not a development standard according to the land use attorney we talked to. Therefore, it's not prescribed, it's desired.
It's suggested.
Suggested. And so if it's not in the development standards, that means it's not mandatory. So what I'm asking you to do is, it's going to get back to the planning commission. We want to make sure it gets enough notice, and to make that timely, I'm asking that you remand this back to the planning commission. Like I said, we've talked to Mr. Smith, and he just wants to make sure it goes through the legal process.
What is
correct process.
So what's the required notice time is, how, I mean?
Well, I don't know. I think Brian said there may not be one, but we want to make sure that we do notice.
If you're going to have a hearing, there should be 20 days to give the owners.
We want to do the same hearing as if it was a brand-new application, which is 20-day notice to the citizens and 12 days notice to the planning commission with a new packet with the revised drawings.
Okay.
Yeah,
So when would they be hearing this?
June 10th.
June 10th.
Okay,
Okay.
terrific.
So you need a motion to do this?
It says yes and no's. I guess, would that require a motion?
Well, it's safe to do a motion.
Okay.
Then I will take a motion to remand this back to
Ayes and
the
nays.
planning commission.
This motion that's in bold here, I move calling up,
Approving to approve the order.
I move to approve the order of, is there a number?
No, just read this title right here.
Motion.
Yeah, okay.
Approve to the order calling up.
Move for approval of the order calling up and remanding Planning Commission Decision DR 13-01/VAR 13-01.
Second.
So motion made by Counselor Ayers and seconded by Counselor Coleman to accept the order calling up and remanding Planning Commission Decision DR 13-01/VAR 13-01. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank
That
you very
passes.
much. Thank you.
6-0.
Thanks for the quick turnaround on that.
Well, I got to thank everybody here. I mean, staff really put in a lot of time and phone calls and effort to get this through. It's not just this piece of paper. There's a lot of information we had to come up with to get this done. So I appreciate the sense of urgency.
Okay. Any city administrator business and staff reports?
No, sir.
Great. Good. Rich was ready for the back end. Second opportunity for citizen input at this time, seeing Bob
Bob, are
and
you sure?
those that have hung on to the better end. All right?
We can make it till 11.
I want to thank Saul and Jerry for coming tonight. and
Yes.
Thank you, Saul. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Haley, for hanging in the better end. You too, Brian.
You're welcome to come.
Yeah. So action review, please,
You've
quickly.
adopted Resolution 1157 and 1158. Ordinance 1374 will be brought back for a new public hearing and first reading on June 5th. You've approved Ordinance 1375, 1376, 1378, and 1381. I lost track here.
No, you're good.
And remanded the Planning Commission Decision DR 13-01, VAR 13-01 back to the Planning Commission.
Great. Thank you, Kim. And there is no exec session. I'm declaring that, Joe, if there was. Before I adjourn, I want to thank Candy for hanging in there this entire time, whenever you do decide to watch this lovely broadcast. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 6-0, we're done.
Thank you, Mayor.